Good morning, everybody. Today we are doing Chapter 9, Lesson 10, which is hands-on, but we're going to actually be drawing these things out on paper. So we have made our way from fractions into mixed numbers. If you remember, mixed numbers are a whole number mixed with a fraction. So it's a whole number with a fraction. So if you can turn to Chapter 9, Lesson 10, you can pause the video while I fast forward here and get to Chapter 9, Lesson 10. In the draw it section, we have the problem 2 and 1/3 plus 1 and 1/3. So in order to draw this out, you'll notice that we have two whole circles to represent the whole number 2, and then they took a third circle and split it into thirds. They made 3 pieces in each one of these. Here is 1, and then this is split up into 1/3. So when you draw this out, this represents 1, 2, and a third, and 1 and 1/3. When you combine them, we're combining the whole numbers and the fractions. So how many whole fraction circles are there altogether? Well, we have 1, 2, 3. So there are 3 full circles. And how many thirds are there altogether? There was 1/3 plus another third would equal 2/3. So when you're adding these things together, you'll notice that they kind of do the long way about this. But if you skip down here, it says there are three whole circles and 2/3 pieces, if you will, of the other 2 circles. So when we add these 2 things together, 3 plus 2/3, we end up with 3 and 2/3. Then try it. So we've got 1 and 7/8. So here is your 1. This circle's been cut into eighths. And then 1 1/2, notice that they have this split only into 1/2. As you color these in, you'll notice that they took this one and they only showed the bottom half as being turned into eighths. But I would recommend, if I was doing this with you at school, I would recommend that you turn this one actually into eighths. Not very good drawing with my mouse, but as you can see, you would still color in half of the circle and you would have 4/8 colored in. So as you're looking at these things, you'll see that we have how many whole numbers and how many parts of eighths. So as you're looking here, and we're just looking just solely right here on these end ones here, we've got 2 holes. Here's one hole, here's the other hole. So we've got 2 holes. And if you actually visualize one of these eighths being moved up here into this circle, that would indicate that that's going to create another whole number. So we have 2 whole numbers, and as you counted the eighths, there were 11 of them. There's 7 here, there are 4 here, and 7 plus 4 is 11, and 11/8, and that's where this is coming from. Changing 11/8 into a mixed number, we have done some practice with changing improper fractions into mixed numbers. 8 goes into 11 one whole time. There would be 3 left over, and your denominator stays the same. You end up with 3 and 3/8. But I want to go back to this picture again and just visualizing, if you move this 1/8 over here, that would give you 3 whole circles with 3/8 left over as a partial circle. And that's where you're going to end up with that answer of 3 and 3/8, just to visually see that. So think about explaining why it's necessary to write 1 1/2 as 1 4/8. And I have to kind of back up here. And they did that here. And remember, when we're adding fractions, you have to have a common denominator. So there's an 8 and a 2. Those are not a common denominator. So as you talk about discussing this, what happened was that you had to create a common denominator. So you're practicing of this. As you're doing this, notice that there are circles that are already completed for you. And notice that these fractions do have common denominators. So as you're practicing and going through this, I want you to think about what you need to do to fill these in. I'm going to pause the video for a second and have you fill that in. So take a minute to pause your video. Okay, so as you're doing this, I want you to, I'm going to hit the forward button so you can double check to see if you had the right answers. If you didn't have the right answers or you're not sure what you did incorrectly, please send me a message that you need help with this. But you can just finish out this assignment, and if there aren't any circles, then you'll need to draw your own. But this is called modeling of adding mixed numbers. And so this is an easy way to kind of draw out how to add mixed